is Skarsnik, Warlord of Eight Peaks, any good in patch 6.1.5. I didn't want to do this video until traveling in his shoes a little, but the core of it isn't hard to explain or understand. Skarsnik is to Night Goblins what Tehenhauin is to red-crested skinks, just far more twisted and backstabby about it. Oh, don't get me wrong, for Ratman body count I'm sure Tehenhauin puts him to shame, but Skarsnik makes things so personal. It's endearing. On paper costing 1,050 in single player and 300 upkeep, Skarsnik is actually a tag team with his squig, so on Ultra he comes in at 6,601 health. Armor is a very mid-lane 50, with missile resistance the standard 15%. Leadership starts at 75, which isn't horrific. Speed 35 and charge speed 44 seem about right. Melee attack begins at 48, and it's of course poison with every blow, attack interval 4 seconds, which is the standard. Medium splash target size, so Empire Knights on down, max targets 4. Trolls will not be splashed. Melee defense of 55 is most respectable. Weapon strength 410 is split base 110 and armor piercing 300. Quite impressive, and Skarsnik's pointy thing grants him a bonus versus large of 30. This is at the high end, worthy of a lore. Charge bonus is 52, and mass is 2,000 thanks to the tag team combo. Skarsnik Vanilla does not have stock yet. He does have Vanguard deployment, Hide in Forest, charge defense versus large, and charge reflection, but how much hurt he'll put into an enemy will vary greatly with circumstances. He has to be standing and fighting to use this. By default, Skarsnik begins with Tricksy Traps, 120 second cooldown, 32 second duration, 35 meter radius. Skarsnik and allies within that radius around him get plus 25% speed, and get stock and unspottable, enabling even giants to be hidden until disturbingly close to the enemy's front line, disturbing for the enemy that is. At first, I didn't get this, because his starting army lacks any artillery, but this lets you really get in the enemy's face, and it's great. Thing is, because this is the tag team at work, Skarsnik gets no mounts, ever. As a faction leader, Skarsnik is forbidden from building orc recruitment buildings unless and until he captures Karak Eight Peaks, and in the case of the cavalry building chain, you can build the first tier, but not the second, which means Goblin Wolf chariots are a casualty. In turn, he gets plus 100% to character experience, minus 50% to base action hero cost before other cost savings, minus 20% to upkeep for goblins and squig units, and ambush success chance plus 15% for all armies. As a general, Warlord of Karak Eight Peaks enables stalking stance for himself, Skarsnik's Wa, which for him provides not just the usual plus 24 melee attack, plus 25% weapon strength, and immunity to psychology, but plus 50% missile strength for the duration it lasts. In his army, leadership plus 8 for Night Goblins, and melee defense plus 4 for Night Goblins. Now, if you've seen my videos, you probably know that defense is one of the areas where typical Night Goblin units usually lose out to regular Goblins, and their leadership is also pretty weak. But that's negated here, so you can completely replace regular Goblins with Night Goblins. Back in the old days, there were no Goblins with spears that actually stopped cavalry cold, so that's separate. Of course, Skarsnik is going to have the same blue line as the other Goblin Lords, except it's not once you get to the middle. Ready and Waiting was for a time buffing a non-existent Lightning Strike when 6.0 came around, but with 6.0.2 allowed you to get Lightning Strike via this middle of the tree skill. 3 pips makes enemy reinforcements come 30% slower generally. Well, wasn't it usually right after midway? Yes, so instead what we have is proper tough, which grants campaign movement plus 15% for Skarsnik at 3 pips. The rest is normal, including out-clevering for plus 30% ambush chance at 3 pips, because stalking stance makes it harder to ambush, though the faction benefit erases that because you can ambush offensively with it like your Skaven. Now that's minus 15%, and the plus 15% from choosing Skarsnik as your legendary lord to start will even that out. But I'm just saying you can get an ambush chance even higher, and that's nice. The red line is completely standard. You definitely want the Gobos, because if you aren't granting plus 6 melee attack, defense, plus 20% ammo, and plus 8% missile strength to Night Goblins and archers thereof, why are you playing this guy exactly? For the top line, Tunnel Boss and Bellower are per usual. The first is free leadership during any subterranean battles, not only when you intercept, but when you are intercepted, and also any sieges. The second is wider leadership aura. Drippin' Tips at rank 6 gives Skarsnik access to his own death juice, which is poison with a fairly mild damage over the time effect, but you usually get none, zero, zilch with poison in the game, so over the course of a battle and a campaign this adds up, and he's a melee lord regardless. At rank 7, Ambusher gives plus 15% ambush success chance, and once again Stalking Stance reduces your chances of an offensive ambush, so this is desirable. Plus 4 melee attack, army-wide during ambushes is likewise very desirable. At rank 10 you can pick both Nastier Squigs and Beta Knight Sneakin', just like usual Night Goblin Lords, but it's consequential to your playstyle. Melee attack plus 8 and charge bonus plus 10 flat for squig units is a big deal, especially when you're dealing with Night Goblin squig hoppers, an adjective-less cavalry unit that has anti-infantry bonus and munches through armor but doesn't rampage. Plus 8 full time on them is a really big deal. The Night Goblin one adds plus 6 melee attack and plus 6 melee defense to your units, and at that point, even the archers aren't pushovers in melee. For his yellow line, Blade Master is 1 pip for an easy plus 5 melee attack. 2 pips of Devastating Charge for plus 30 flat charge bonus means charge bonus 82. Keep in mind, he has a squig following him around, but Skarsnik is considered a small target, so he will not trigger charge defense versus large himself. He'll only trigger expert charge defense if present, and you can try and keep a watch for what has that. 2 pips of Choppas is the usual plus 20% weapon strength. Scarred Veteran is plus 15% health at 2, good stuff here. Deadly Blade is plus 12 melee attack at 2. Foe Seeker is the usual speed buff and fatigue bye-bye active skill. Hard to hit is plus 12 to melee defense, which is desirable. Indomitable is plus 12 leadership at 2. Thick-skinned is plus 15 to armor, and you only started with 50. And Wound Maker is plus 20% weapon strength again. Like the Ogre Hunter and the Bull Center Torok, Skarsnik currently uses Colossal Strike as his capstone, and this gives him an even greater bonus versus large, plus a solid but unspectacular boost to his per hit damage. Of course you want this riding on top of plus 40% over base you just got from the skill tree. For his very personal line, Spite of the Bad Moon is a bound ability, 90-second cooldown, 20 seconds duration, 35-meter radius, but can be cast on the ground at 150 meters away from him. It'll affect him just fine if he's within that radius. For those 20 seconds of glory, everyone around him gets plus 25% base and armor piercing melee damage, and plus 16 bonus versus large, even if you're dealing with wimpy regular goblins. This is the kind of ability that can completely turn fights. Fermented Fungi has a 75-meter range, 3 uses with a 9-second cooldown. For 15 seconds, the target suffers minus 24 melee defense and undergoes Rampage. This, on the wrong unit, is an absolute nightmare for a Sitzkrieg opponent, pulling a valuable unit into what could be a ferocious trap, like if Skarsnik had 3 Night Goblin Archer units standing behind him while he receives a charge he can nullify by bracing. Good stuff. Smart Haydn grants Skarsnik himself plus 15% speed, which is good because his combat tree provided none, 15% physical resistance, which is new and potentially very handy, and Stalk, which opens up a whole new can of Whoop Donkey on the opponent. Underboss lets Skarsnik steal 25% experience from other lords and allows Goblin Big Boss and Night Goblin Shaman recruitment across all provinces. I guess they didn't include the Night Goblin Big Boss in this. Well, you only need 2 of these middle pips for the capstone, so you have the option of declining. And you certainly can skip this. Cough 'em Up adds plus 30% chance of stealing a magic item or getting a drop after battle. Good for getting all the shinies. Backstairs Tactics grants all units in Skarsnik's army plus 10 leadership during ambushes, and plus 6 armor piercing with each and every melee blow during ambushes as well, which means that any and every success in ambushing is going to Super Saiyan your gobos, and be a perfectly good buff to anything short of a character or a single entity monster. Skarsnik begins with a legendary banner, making a single goblin unit plus 5 melee attack plus 5 melee defense, causes fear, and unbreakable. The latter is pretty insane on a trash unit, buying time for your archers. Because I didn't use it that way at all. Nope, absolutely not. Die for me, my brave minions! Yes, that sounds better from a hot sorceress, but whatever. Skarsnik's single legendary equipable item is a weapon, and its battle can open up at rank 7. Skarsnik's Prodder grants control plus 3 to all provinces, post-battle loot plus 10% for him, plus 6 melee attack, enables magical attacks for demon crushing, weapon strength plus 10%, and the ability of the same name has 2 uses, 120-second cooldown, 200-meter range, a contained explosion of 432 flaming magical attack, that's 100% armor piercing, and an 8-meter explosion radius with 68 damage, 100% armor piercing. This is enough to reliably 100% erase a lot of archer models so long as the entities are within that radius. This is Skarsnik's idea of reaching out and touching someone, you see. The thing is, this is like a Gaze of Nagash spell. It's a pretty narrow hit. It's not like the Little Wall Gaze spell. So how do we use Skarsnik? Let me summarize from the top down. If you don't have the Grom the Paunch DLC and you don't have the Gorbad DLC, you are going to have a much worse time. That's because Skarsnik has been optimized for use of Squigs. His starting region has a special building that greatly helps with Squigs. Indeed, it provides income, plus 4 recruit rank, and recruitment of all Squigs you need buildings for, which is all of them except for the basic Squig herd. That includes Colossal Squigs usually gotten at a rank 4 building. It's not that the nerfed Mangler Squigs are so dominant, though they are usable. It's not that I think Colossal Squigs are something to spam without limit. It's that with the Tech Creature Conference, and either the Province Commandment for recruitment cost reduction and plus 1 recruitment rank, or a leveled up Night Goblin Big Boss, you can instantly recruit Squigs from that province at rank 7. More importantly than even that, let's look at Beta Night Sneak and nastier Squigs again. There's a bunch of units that count as Night Goblins, and then we have Squigs for Squigs. So where do Mangler Squigs and Night Goblin Squig Hoppers fall? Because they do have Night Goblin Riders. Let me save you from squinting. They count as both. That means minus 20% to Goblins and minus 20% to Squigs upkeep overlaps, and Squig Hoppers and Mangler Squigs are minus 40%. That also means actually taking Beta Night Sneakin' and nastier Squigs adds a total of plus 14 melee attack, plus 6 melee defense, and plus 10 charge bonus. That you can get with any Night Goblin Warboss. But with Skarsnik's personal army, you can make that plus 10 melee defense total, and plus 8 leadership too. Now, this doesn't mean you should take only Squig Hoppers, and Mangler Squigs have a place. They're unbreakable and have a low entity count, but if you want a safe option, don't be afraid of taking cost savings and pouring money into even basic trolls, losing a few models in battle while they mob blasting charges and Iron Drake units instead of losing hundreds of Night Goblins works out completely in your favor. Also, what can you spam with the minus 20% upkeep boost, not accounting for minus 5% from more grub tech, from potential mushroom-addicted characters, and so on? You can spam Night Goblins with Fanatics. You start with 2, you want the capability to spam a lot more. They can lunatic, yes I use that as a verb, lunatic, into blobs, being aggrieved by trolls or pump wagons or Mangler Squigs. One of those will regenerate chip damage. Trolls used properly will stay in the fight more than you'd expect and will be brutally hard to take down, which is not what you can say for nasty skulkers, which should be a good option but which are hard to use in ideal situations as Skarsnik. Point being, these are your options for efficient expansion of your armies. In current game version, you cannot recruit orcs until you get Karak Eight Peaks in most situations. Confederating Lords means you get their units, and I've seen it even let you recruit orc shamans. Consider that an oversight. Once you get 8 peaks, you can build the buildings, and you can build them in all provinces normally, which means you can start getting black orcs and stuff, but have no economic benefit or battle boosts specifically for them, but hey, they're black orcs. Come on. Also, you can't even get boar boys, and also the aforementioned problem of not being able to get the Goblin Wolf chariots until you get to this point is alleviated. So that annoyance, which is a severe annoyance, is suddenly gone. So that means your skirmish cavalry options are limited to wolf riders and only wolf riders or spider riders, and that means you can get Snagla, and while rushing him is not required, you still want to get him sometimes. You really do. He is also your only other source of stalking stance unless you get 8 peaks, at which point all your armies can do it. Not necessarily as good as Skarsnik, but still. In campaign, you have a lot of options. Taking Thorgrim down first requires shooting a gyro bomber or just suffering its presence. Archer spam can do this through brute volume of arrows. You are told to go after dwarfs with raw armies in overwhelming numbers, but to me those are mostly for making sieges less painful. If you ambush an army, offensively or defensively, you have to rely on your legendary lord's army, and that is hairy, but it's also kind of doable. I would just use these guidelines. Play Stage Magician and saw the enemy in half. If the lords flee, that's fine, so long as you annihilate their dangerous missile units, or almost so. Though chasing gyro bombers without artillery as Skarsnik is hard, and you might want wolf riders with bows just for that, if you have to actually do that in a non-ambush battle. Thorgrim is one of your few early enemies who actually has a mount, so mercilessly throw Skarsnik and your Ragnarok at him. If you fight Ungrim and he's basically unkillable after you broke the rest of his army in an ambush, you have the option of just running away to finish him off in auto-resolve later. In the long run, scrap upgrades exist to overcome things like no error boards, and therefore no 6 AP per shot arrows, until you have 8 peaks taken care of. So, even though that you want certain other stuff too, you really want heavy ammo. The game wants your capital, which is centrally located, to die, and eventually will work toward that goal. So no matter what you do, work toward circling back to your capital, or be involved in wars in front of you so that the game forgets about that for a little while. If you can't or won't take on Thorgrim early, and Gorbad will deal with that on his own for a while, and while Ungrim can be dealt with early, it's not ideal either. Ultimately, annoying as it is, your early game forces are simply much better able to fight Skaven than dwarfs, so go ahead and hunt Tretch. Go through clan wars whenever you have to. Prioritize the horde buildings so that your baseline isn't particularly bad, and even without raiding buildings, your sacking income is naturally high, so either by losing an army here and there, or winning and sacking, or just fighting more and more battles, you will get one-time money spikes, and that's when you build up your buildings. And also, the Goblin Big Boss helps your post-battle loot, so there's that. Here's a quick cheat sheet. For cities, you can have 10 building slots in that should be priorities if possible. Kara's a Karak, Black Crag, Karak 8 Peaks. But sandbagging Gorbad to get the middle one, well, do that if he makes it easy for you, and do that if you really must. But you lose the benefit of a natural blocker against forces in other areas you're not prioritizing. Gorbad doesn't hate you, so it's really easy to ally with him. And finally, like many other Greenskins, at some point you'll rob the Chaos Dwarfs blind, because that's where the money is. Their cities are just bigger banks. You just want a strong foundation. At some point, some kind of enemy will make inroads. You're just trying to put up roadblocks to make it hard, until you can get armies over it and sort things out. Now, a word about Skarsnik's Death Juice. The damage from this isn't high, but it's Mortis Engine style damage, so over time it's going to add up, including from Skarsnik himself. This will replace poison on the unit it works on. Also, poison cancels out armor sundering, so be very careful about using this on armor sundering RORs. You have been warned. But it's also a differently named contact effect in game files, therefore Death Juice and normal poison can stack. That means you can have non-Slayers enemies with minus 30% speed. Well, that'll work on Slayers too. Minus 30% weapon strength and minus 30% missile strength. It will not always work out that way, but it's there. This is an argument in favor of staggering Death Juice with Night Goblins, and frankly there's so many scrap upgrades that you can slap on them that are helpful, you can almost forget about them being expendable trash in terms of HP and vulnerability to spells, dreadquakes, and so on. So no, it is a risk and reward thing, but also meditate that there are units that inflict poison which can't get Death Juice regardless. This includes Cunning trait characters, Spider Riders, melee or ranged, Snagla's Death Thrower ROR, Night Goblin characters, cutting or not, and Ragnarok spiders. I'm probably missing something, that's fine, you get the idea. So even though at some point you can get orcs, fanatics are amazing against blobs, and your opponents are still going to try and blob you a lot, and you need to deal. Magic is great for that, but availability is limited. Fanatics are easier for Skarsnik to spam, and they're certainly easier for him to spam than Black Orcs. And Squig Hoppers are even easier to spam. I haven't mentioned them a lot, but to sneak this in, no matter how much Mangler Squigs act sort of kind of like chariots in terms of roll, they're not chariots. But pump wagons have proper collision attacks, so use them to wreck, and since they cost extra upkeep, merge or disband as needed later on as your options get better. And also, Mangler Squigs really like working with low entity units like trolls and pump wagons. I hope this is sufficient advice for now. Take care and have fun dominating the mountains, and take advantage of every time someone dares put a lord on a large mount in front of you, because even without a single point in the yellow line, Skarsnik is scary against them.